Let me ask you something, and I want you to answer honestly, not out loud, but somewhere deep inside your chest. When was the last time you felt truly safe being the real you? Not the quiet version, not the polite version, not the agreeable version you learned to perform. I mean you, the unfiltered, unedited, unmasked you. For many people, being themselves feels natural, but for others, for people like you, being yourself feels dangerous. You don't raise your voice because someone once punished you for speaking. You don't show emotion because someone called you dramatic. You don't show enthusiasm because someone told you it was too much. You don't share your opinions because someone made you feel stupid for having them. And slowly, you learn something tragic. If I want to be safe, I can't be me. So, you became careful, controlled, measured. You learned to read rooms before entering them, to adjust your tone mid-sentence, to shrink yourself just enough to avoid becoming a problem. You became so good at being who everyone needed that you forgot what it feels like to be who you are. And the saddest part, nobody noticed the difference because you never showed them the person you buried. If hearing this makes your chest ache, if a part of you feels exposed, seen, or quietly understood, stay. You're not broken. You're not confused. You're not too sensitive. You just never had a place where being yourself was safe. But in this video, we're going to talk about why that happened and why the real you deserves to exist again. 1. Your childhood taught you to watch the world before you watched yourself. Some people grow up with freedom. Freedom to speak. Freedom to express. Freedom to cry. Laugh, be loud, be messy, be real. But you grew up with responsibility. Responsibility to stay quiet. Responsibility to stay small. Responsibility to not upset anyone. Responsibility to be good. Before you even knew who you were, you learned who everyone else was, their moods, their tone shifts, their unpredictable silence, their explosive reactions, their fragile egos. You became a reader of emotions long before you had the language for your own. And in a world where you had to adjust constantly, you learned something heartbreaking. Who I am is less important than who they need me to be. That belief didn't stay in childhood. It followed you into adulthood, silently, persistently. 2. You learned that being your real self comes with risks. Think back. How many times did being honest lead to conflict? How many times did expressing desire lead to disappointment? How many times did asking for what you needed lead to rejection or guilt? How many times did showing emotion lead to being called dramatic? How many times did speaking your mind make someone punish you? With words, with silence, with withdrawal. So without meaning to, you connected authenticity with danger. Not physical danger, emotional danger, relational danger. The kind of danger that tells you if you show who you really are, you will lose love. People don't hide themselves because they want to. They hide themselves because they associate vulnerability with some of the most painful memories they have. 3. And so, you became a master of self-editing. People don't realize how exhausting masking is. They don't realize that every time you speak, you run a full internal simulation. Is this too much? Will they misunderstand me? Will this make them uncomfortable? Should I soften this? Should I stay quiet? Should I agree instead? You've lived so long in survival mode that you confuse suppression with kindness and self-abandonment with maturity. But editing yourself doesn't mean you're fake. It means you were trained to survive by blending in, not by being yourself. There's a difference, and that difference is the root of your exhaustion. 4. When you grow up without emotional safety, honesty feels dangerous. Emotional safety is the permission to exist without fear. It's the freedom to make mistakes, speak honestly, express emotion, be messy, have needs, disagree, disappoint someone without losing love. But if you never learned this as a child, then adulthood becomes a stage you perform on instead of a life you live in. You don't just fear conflict, you fear disappointing someone. You don't just fear vulnerability, you fear being unprotected. You don't just fear judgment, you fear the emotional consequences it once carried. Your nervous system is not dramatic, it's conditioned. Conditioned by years of adaptation in an environment that didn't make space for the real you. 5. People who don't feel safe being themselves live a double life inside their own mind. There is the version the world sees, composed, pleasant, understanding, helpful, calm, easy to be around. And then there is the version hidden, the emotional you, the expressive you, the opinionated you, the passionate you, the vulnerable you, the humorous you, the sensitive you. You don't show this person because you fear they won't be accepted. So you protect them, you guard them, you keep them behind a silent door that no one else has the key to. But here's the painful truth. The more you hide the real you, the more invisible you feel. And not because people fail to see you, but because you never show them anything true enough to recognize. 6. Even in safe environments, you hesitate because safety is unfamiliar. This is where the wound becomes clear. Even when someone listens, respects you, asks about your feelings, wants to know you, welcomes your truth, you still freeze. You still overthink. You still soften yourself. You still hold back. Not because the person is unsafe, but because your body doesn't know what safety feels like. To someone who grew up unprotected, kindness feels suspicious. Interest feels overwhelming. Acceptance feels unreal. Being seen feels threatening. Being loved feels dangerous. You don't run from the person you run, from the unfamiliarity of feeling safe. 7. You carry the belief that the real you is too much. People who don't feel safe being themselves carry a quiet fear. If I show who I really am, people will leave. That belief doesn't come from imagination. It comes from lived experiences. Someone made you feel like you were too emotional, too soft, too expressive, too weird, too intense, too sensitive, too talkative, too quiet, too opinionated, too curious, too authentic. So now, the real you lives in a cage built from other people's discomfort. And the tragedy is this: the very traits people rejected in you were probably the most human parts you had. 8. You learn to reject yourself first, before anyone else can. This is one of the deepest psychological patterns. You silence your needs to avoid burdening others. You hide your emotions to avoid vulnerability. You shrink your personality to avoid judgment. You soften your voice to avoid conflict. You say it's okay when it isn't. You say I'm fine when you're hurting. You say don't worry about it when you needed someone to care. You don't do this because you're weak. You do it because you were trained to believe your truth is dangerous. So you betray yourself early before anyone else gets the chance. It's self-abandonment disguised as self-protection. 9. You attract people who prefer the masked version of you, not intentionally, but inevitably. When you present the gentlest, quietest, safest version of yourself, you attract people who, like you, compliant, like you, easy, like you, predictable, like you, quiet, like you, supportive but not expressive, like you, giving but not needing. And these relationships reinforce your wound because they say, "We like you, but only the version of you that doesn't challenge anything." And so you stay small, you stay agreeable, you stay invisible, not because they force you, but because your nervous system still believes visibility is dangerous. 10. Your strength is a mask built over layers of suppressed emotion. People think you're strong. People think you're calm. People think you're independent. People think you're low maintenance, but they don't know. Your calm is a learned response. Your independence is a trauma adaptation. Your emotional control is self-defense. Your silence is exhaustion. Your composure is a shield. Your strength is a survival strategy you never asked for. And every day, you carry the weight of a self that is not fully allowed to exist. That weight is invisible but heavy. 11. The healing begins with noticing the moments you hide yourself. Noticing when you say yes but mean no. Apologize without doing anything wrong. Stay quiet to avoid conflict. Sugarcoat your emotions. Hide your excitement. Avoid expressing needs. Pretend you don't care. Force yourself to be composed. Shrink your ideas. Dim your personality. These are not small behaviors. They are clues, indicators of a wound that has never been allowed to heal. Healing starts with noticing, not changing, just noticing, because awareness is the first act of returning to yourself. 12. Healing also requires entering relationships where authenticity is not punished. You don't heal alone. You heal in safe spaces, safe connections, safe relationships. You heal with people who stay calm when you're emotional. Listen when you speak. Don't use your vulnerability against you. Don't shame you for being human. Don't make you feel dramatic. Don't punish your honesty. Welcome your opinions. Accept your personality. Give you space to feel. Encourage your voice to exist. These people do something powerful. They teach your nervous system that being yourself does not equal danger. And that is where healing begins. 13. Your real self is waiting, not gone, not broken. Everything you hid is still inside you. Your humor, your creativity, your tenderness, your intelligence, your emotional depth, your curiosity, your eccentricity, your passions, your dreams, your real voice, your real personality. None of these parts disappeared. They simply retreated into the safest corner of your mind, waiting for permission to exist again. You didn't lose yourself. You protected yourself. That is not failure. That is survival. 14. And one day, you will feel safe being yourself again. Not all at once. Not overnight. Not in a single moment of transformation, but slowly, in tiny acts of honesty, in small moments of courage, in soft steps toward truth, in relationships where you are met, not dismissed. You will speak a little louder. You will feel a little deeper. You will express a little freer. You will trust a little more. You will exist a little fuller. And one day, without even realizing it, you will look at yourself and say, I know who I am. And I'm not afraid of that anymore, because you were never too much. You were never wrong. You were never broken. You were simply never safe. But now you can learn safety. You can learn softness. You can learn trust. You can learn to be seen. You can learn to be heard. You can learn to exist without fear. And slowly, beautifully, you can learn to be yourself again.